What are you thirsty for? What are you longing for? What is that craving that in your being where you feel like some hunger, some thirst in our souls? And I know there is a thirst, a longing in my heart that water cannot satisfy and that beer cannot satisfy, and that any other drink cannot satisfy. And it is that deep longing in our hearts that Psalm 42 describes so beautifully. The prayer that says, as a deer longs for the river, for the water, the fresh water from the well, from the river, so does my soul long for the living God. There is a longing in our hearts. And this looking and this longing to be loved, that's what we focus on during this Lenten season. And you see it perfectly up here. So longing and looking for love. And I think that's in our heart. I think that's what God instilled in our hearts. So over a conversation about water of Jesus with the Samaritan woman, we learn about love. We learn about how we can connect and experience being loved and our thirst in our souls be satisfied. Conversations. What are such kind of conversations? So Jesus has it here with the Samaritan woman. But conversations happen in other settings. Give you an example from myself. Once a month, I meet with clergy colleagues. It's like a clergy support group. And right there, we discuss what was a high during the last month, what were some lows, what questions do you have? And there is some spirit, something there where we truly connect on a deeper level, where our hearts, our souls get something that is so hard to put into questions or into words. And this is what happens in between Jesus and the Samaritan woman. The interesting thing is that Jesus is crossing boundary and usual customs of the day. The Samaritan woman was ethnically different. Now, they had some similar language, they could talk about it, but think of a Latina or think of other immigrants. So Jesus talking with someone from a different ethnic group, and Jesus as a man talking with a woman that was not custom. So he basically crosses a boundary. He reaches beyond. It's like reaching across the aisle. He bridges a gap where custom, common practice, put up walls of separations and we don't mingle, we stay apart. Jesus reaches beyond that to the woman. And I think that's what Jesus does with us too, where we seem to be separated or where we feel like not so worthy or where we feel different or we have some messiness and some disorganization in our lives. That's where Jesus reaches for us. And that conversation with Spirit does not need to be in between different people. I remember a good friend. He was like the hamster in a wheel, running, rushing, and the busyness in all that he tried to do just didn't do it for him. So from time to time, he remembered, oh, there is this spot by a creek. And he had his very specific spot under a tree where he just sat calmly down. He listened to the creek's water running and just breathing through and being in the presence of the living God. It's what the spiritual practice called contemplative prayer. Just opening your heart and just being present. The younger ones would call like hanging out with God or chilling out with God. Just be present. It may be over a coffee in your own sofa, just being present rather than having the distractions, rather than having the TV on, rather than whatever. And for some it's hiking, for some it's weaving, for some it's knitting, for some it's just being together with other people that feeds their souls. And I think deep down in our hearts, we're longing for the conversation that Jesus has with the Samaritan woman. We long to be heard, to be understood, to be loved, to be embraced, to be valued and appreciated. I remember I was a little boy and lived in a small village. All the stores we had was a butcher, a bakery, a general store, a cafeteria or a cafe, and a bar, like a tavern. So those were all the things. So my mother sent me, go get bread, Dietmar. And I don't know what, I just thought I need to run, do it as fast as I can, and I did rush. Came back with huffing and puffing. And all I wanted, remember, is for Mom to recognize how fast I was. I was looking for being noticed, being seen as the little one, as the youngest one who maybe at some point was overlooked. I remember when our sons, both Max and Felix, when they were recognized in school for their achievement and they were there, I could feel it down my spine, how it touched me, this longing to be recognized, to be seen for who I and for who we are. And I think that longing is somehow in our hearts, to be seen, to be treasured, to be valued, and to be loved for who we are. And especially when we sense we don't have our lives all together. What I like about this encounter of Jesus with the woman is her life doesn't look perfect either. And yet Jesus is there reaching out for her. He asks her, go get your husband. Well, she has been married 5 times, and the current person she lives with is not her husband. So it's kind of, should I share that? Should I come out? Should I be present? Should I be open about it? Yet, Jesus loves her. He reaches, invites her, and our brokenness, our limitations, our imperfections, our hurting, our grieving, that is even more invitation for Jesus to reach for us, to see us. It all starts over a conversation. It all starts by listening with an open heart. And I think that's what's happening with our visitors in our visitation ministry team. People going and visiting someone who is homebound, someone who is in the nursing home. There's nothing you have to fix, nothing you have to make happen. It's just being present, listening deeply with an open heart for a true encounter with Jesus to happen where 2 or 3 are gathered and sharing with one another. And I think these conversations feed our souls. In our relationship with Jesus, which is mediated through people like you and me among each other, that's where our souls, the thirst from our souls is being quenched. There are people in your lives, people you encountered, people with whom you like to hang out, people in like the prayer shawl group, people you meet over coffee. Something is happening there. And that's why we also want to start our meet and eat, that over a table and over a meal, we can connect more deeply with one another. Tell me about yourself. And then imagine a group of people, just like my clergy support group. Margaret, you shared so beautifully about the light group. Just coming together with someone in a group and knowing once a month, what were your highs, what were your lows, what do you struggle with, what questions you have. And just with positive, open regard, opening up to one another, I think that's where we meet and encounter the living Christ. And this woman is so excited after this encounter with Jesus. She goes back to her village and says, "Come and see. It's true. Jesus loves us. Jesus is there. Jesus reaches for us. Come and see." She's the evangelist. She's reaching out. Jesus touches us and meets us where we are hungry, where we are longing, where we're craving, where we're thirsty for love.